Hello, I'm Eric Folks, and today we're going to talk about Google Docs and Google Drive and go beyond the basics. We're going to teach you how to become a true Google driver of cloud-based productivity tools. In this module, we're going to learn how to search Google Drive and do quite a few other things. So let's take this one step at a time. And first, go to Google Chrome, our preferred browser for all things Google Apps, and we're going to search for Drive. Google Drive is the first hit. When you select that, it'll prompt you to log in. At that point, you're going to be able to see something like this. Now, initially, it's going to say, do you want to download Google Drive for PC? In the first in the series, the basics of Google Drive and Docs, we talked extensively about the advantages and the questionable necessity of downloading Google Drive for PC. If you do download it, then you get that file where you've got your Google Drive folder, and anything that you put in Google Drive is going to show up locally on your computer. But I'm ready to get rid of that notification and dismiss that banner, so I just click the X. Okay? Alright, so first thing we want to do is learn how to search the things that we've got in Google Drive. I don't have many things in my Drive folder. I can click the little down arrow to collapse or expand what I've got in the way of folders. So I'm going to go ahead and create a folder, and we'll just call it Demo. And I'm going to go ahead and in Demo, I'm going to left click on Demo to go into it. I'm going to create a test document. And I've titled it. And now I'm going to close it. And you can see that within my drive, we've got a folder called Demo and we've got a file called Test. Right? So if I click back on my drive, it's just going to show me what's in my drive, which is the folder Demo and also this individual file, keyboard shortcuts, which we're going to talk about later. So how can we search Google Drive? Well, just like in Gmail, up here we can search by keyword. So if I type in test, it's going to search all my Google Docs and my Google Drive, and it pulls up this link that will take me directly to that file test. Okay, but I have a few other options as well. From my drop-down, I can utilize some of the advanced search options, and I can look for particular types of files. You know, right now we've just got a couple in Google Drive, but over time you can get quite a few different types of files and files that are shared with you by other people. So to be able to search for specifically images or PDF files or presentations will help you drastically find what you're looking for very quickly. You can also search by visibility. Is it public on the web, or is it just somebody who has to have a direct link? Is it private? Is it not shared? And then you can search by ownership. Any files that are owned by you, or any files that are shared with you, or that have been opened by you. Now, if it's not owned by me, those are going to be files that are shared with you. If it's with you directly by email, and if it's opened by me, then it could be a file that somebody had just shared through a public link. Anyone with a link could open it, so you'd be able to search for those things as well. So we can search in a variety of different ways, and we also have the ability to search by any of the folders that we create. So I would highly recommend utilizing many folders so that you can organize your documents. So let's say I wanted to take any of these files. It's really easy to just left click on it to select it, and you see I've got lots of different options up here, including the ability to organize and move it to a particular folder. We covered this last time in part 1, but we can very easily left click on a folder to move it to that folder, and if we hold down Control, we can actually move it. We can add labels or tags so that it shows up in multiple folders. Okay. We can also just left click and drag it. So I'm going to move keyboard shortcuts into the test folder. I left click and drag and then release, and it is now out of the My Drive and within the test folder itself. Okay. Alright, so we've talked about searching Google Drive. How do we adjust the views and display density and sort files? Well, this isn't too difficult either. If we go back into Google Drive, we're going to see right away that we have a list form and a grid form for anything that we've got. So if I go with a grid form, you can see I've got big huge icons for the various folders or files that I've got. So if I click on my test folder, you can see I see a little icon preview of that file keyboard shortcuts, and when I put my mouse over it, it gives me a little preview of it, and mouse over text as well. So I can toggle between list and grid view. I can also, from the drop down, go back to my drive here and back to list. I can also adjust, just like in Gmail, the display density. That is the spacing between the various elements that you've got displayed in Google Drive. Right now it's uncomfortable, but if you look to the left-hand side when I click on Cozy, the font spacing gets a little bit tighter, and if I go as far as compact, it gets even tighter. So more elements, files will all be displayed on the same page without you having to scroll back and forth. I usually leave it on comfortable because I don't mind the scrolling, and it's a little bit easier on the eyes. So the other thing we wanted to focus on was how do we sort. It's real easy when you've got a long list of files to sort by when they were last edited or modified, last opened by you. It defaults to title. You can also modify it by quota used, in that you have 5 gigabytes of space in Google Drive, so how big is the file? Most of what you upload to Google Drive is going to count towards that 5 gigabytes of space, but if it's a Google Doc, it will not count towards that space. So any Google Doc presentations, docs, spreadsheets, forms, anything that you create in the web is not going to count towards your 5 gigabytes of space. It's only things that you upload to Google Drive, other file formats, that are going to count towards that. Okay? All right, so now how about some common keyboard shortcuts? There are a couple keyboard shortcuts that we covered in the basics, but there are a whole lot more to it, and we'll go ahead and click on a Google Doc that I created with a few snapshots of common keyboard shortcuts that might be helpful. You can see there are full links to all the Google Docs and Google Drive shortcuts right here up at the top. I'll include a link to this file as well. These are the ones that I think you're going to use most commonly. Here's Create New Google Docs. If you hold down Shift and a T or Shift plus P, you can create new files right there within Drive. So if I go Shift P, it's going to create a new presentation for me. Okay, so other ones that we can use, I'll go ahead and cancel out of that, would include how you would work with documents on a day-to-day basis. So within a Google Doc, you can use some of the same keyboard shortcuts that you would normally use within Microsoft Office. Control A in order to select all the text. If I hit Control A, it's going to select all of the elements on here, the text and the pictures and everything else. But we can also use Control C to copy, Control V to paste, Control X to cut. Most of them are going to be pretty straightforward. There are just a couple differences that we talked about last time in terms of how you will align the text. If you want to align text to the left, center, or the right, instead of Control L, Control R, you're going to go Control Shift L. So if I go Control Shift L, it's going to left align, Control Shift R will right align, and Control Shift E will center. And those are pretty straightforward. And I'll add those as well here. So other common ones, bolding, italicizing, underlining, all those are similar to Microsoft Office. So again, feel free to explore some of these links. There are really quite a few different keyboard shortcuts that you may find useful for working with Google Docs. Here's their entire list. Okay. All right, how about managing share settings for folders and files? This is an important skill. If we go into our Google Drive, we have the ability to share files in a variety of different ways. Let's say I want you to be able to access the keyboard shortcuts Google Doc that I created. So I'm going to click on the share in the top right hand corner. Most of them default, all of them will default to private until you share it. And I've already shared this to anyone who has the link can view it. But you can share those things right here. If I click change, I can say it's public and searchable on the web, and anybody can find it, and I could even say anybody could edit it. Anyone with the link means that they have to have a direct link to that file in order to view it, comment on it, or edit it, depending on what you set as the permissions right here. And private is going to be just you and anybody that you directly invite via email to that document. But notice that when you leave it on private, a sign-in is going to be required. So if they don't have a Google account, they're going to have to create a Google account. So most of the time I say anyone with a link if I want to share it with somebody, just because I don't want to force them to create a Google account. So I click Save, and after I've adjusted any of the settings, I'm given an updated URL that I can right-click and copy, and I can paste or share that via email, putting it on the web, whatever the case may be. So that's within the actual Google Doc, and that would apply to presentations and spreadsheets as well. You can also, from the drop-down, typically there's a file share link as well. So top right, or from file share, and yet there's another way you can share as well. So if I go into that test folder and the keyboard shortcuts, if I select it there from the drop-down, I also have the ability to share it from here. And one neat thing about Google Drive is you can also share entire folders. So if I go to, if I want to share this test folder, if I select it, and from the drop-down I can share the folder, which means any additional files that I upload to it or create within that folder, people would automatically have access to, because I've shared the folder with them and not individual files. So that can be a great time-saving technique. All right, last thing we want to focus on are web apps. What are web apps as they apply to Google Drive, and how can we connect them to Google Drive? If we go over to Google Chrome, we'll notice from the drop-down in the top right-hand corner under Settings, we have Manage Apps. If I click on that, I'm going to see any of the apps that are installed for my Google Drive. And it says that there aren't any installed, so I'm going to go ahead and get more apps. If I click on Learn More, it's going to tell me about the nature of third-party apps, web apps. Basically that they don't guarantee functionality, that they may work great, they may not work very well, but they give you different abilities to work within files within Google Drive. So I'm going to click Get More Apps. So it takes me up, you can see there's a new tab opening here, to the Chrome Web Store. Now there's an important distinction that we need to make here. Web apps are apps, programs, small little programs that work through a browser, and Google Chrome has a whole bunch of different apps that will work right within the browser that provide you with some amazing functionality. Now within that, all of those Chrome web apps, there are some apps that work specifically with Google Drive, and you can see that under the collections. And it took us straight here because we came to this from Google Drive. So it's telling us these are the web apps that work great with Google Drive. So Pixlr Express is one of many. You can see we've got quite a few here that claim to work very well with Google Drive. But this Pixlr Express and Pixlr are in theory great apps for managing, for working with images. So if I click on Pixlr Express and I say I want to add it to Chrome, are you sure you want to add it? I say yes. And so there it shows up right there. Okay. So if I click on the Chrome Web Store, go back to it, and I say I want to install Lucidchart, notice for any of these apps, if I actually click on them without adding them, I can see an overview of the app. Sometimes that includes videos. I can see the rating, which is very important. How many people have rated it and how many stars they get out of 5 on average. How many people are actually using this. I can add it to Chrome. I can actually see the reviews of people who have experienced this app, and there's lots of great tools for you to evaluate the potential of any particular web app. So I'm going to click Add this one to Chrome, and I click Add. And so you can see it adding to the tabs here. Now within Google Drive, it tells me that there are no apps currently installed. Well, let's refresh. And it tells me that Pixlr Express was added to Google Drive. So if I go from the drop down and I say Manage Apps, it shows me that there were 2 apps that were added to Google Drive. Now previously I had found that sometimes these apps wouldn't show up right away within Google Drive, which means if, say, we've got an app that works with images, and I upload an image, When I right-clicked on that particular image and wanted to open it with that web app, when I right-click on this and I say Open With, they weren't showing up right here. What I noticed is that when I went into Firefox, that I'm going to just refresh here. It tells me what has been added more consistently than Chrome itself, and I think that's just because Google Chrome has web apps that work within the browser itself, and they don't necessarily connect to Google Drive quite as quickly. They don't understand that you're trying to install it in Google Drive. So if you have any problems getting it to connect to your Google Drive because it's just being added to your browser itself and not necessarily installing or connecting to Google Drive, you would find that out from here, Manage Apps, and make sure that they were showing up. If they weren't showing up right here, maybe log into your Google Drive on Firefox and load the new apps that way, and they'll be sure to install within Google Drive because Firefox is a different browser and doesn't have its own set of web apps that will work outside of Google Drive. Okay, so now I have the ability to right-click on that image and I say I want to open it with Pixlr Express, and it will ask me for permission. I'm going to say yes, allow access. And that's connecting to my Google account so that it has access. This online browser-based editor has access to my files within my Google account. So I can apply various effects to my image and work with it in a variety of different ways. Literally tons of web apps out there for use with Google Drive and the Google Chrome browser in general. So we have covered searching Google Drive, adjusting views, display density, sorting files, common keyboard shortcuts, managing share settings for both files and whole folders, and we've talked extensively about web apps. I hope with this information you will become a Google driver of cloud-based productivity tools. Thank you for your time.